Just a warning, this video is rated DN for topics that are dark and naughty. So when Japanese anime became widely available in the US, it came with a surge of other Japanese media, and soon we were all obsessed with J-pop. And by all, I mean my immediate friend circle, which is everyone. But more recently, everyone seems to have forgotten about J-pop. Now it's all about K-pop, pop music from Korea. South Korea, not North Korea. What would that be like? Hi, I'm Magdalen Rose, YouTuber, ambassador of Vaporwave, and a recovering K-pop stan. Sadly, as much as I loved K-pop, I had to leave the fandom behind. And today, we're talking about why.
Gather round, children. I'll tell you about the old days.
So around 2012 is when K-pop Fever hit me real hard. We are talking Girls' Generation, EXO, SHINee, J-Park, Orange Caramel, Psy, G-Dragon, etc. K-pop hit the US at like the perfect time because we had just come out of the early 2000s, and that had not been a particularly inspired time for pop music. Listen, I'm not judging you. Everyone has their trash. I just personally hated the aesthetic of the early aughts. What if we let Jersey Shore decorate an era?
The person that wants to be friends with you, that wants to talk to you now, is me. And you are...
So it's 2012. We're just wading through this swamp of Carly Rae Jepsen and R. Kelly, and suddenly...
Gangnam Style.
What is this? It was colorful, it was catchy, it was funny. The aesthetic of K-pop is like this hyper-futuristic lens on the 80s. A ton of color, crazy costumes and makeup, everything is exaggerated, people are basically cartoons. But more importantly, it made Western pop music look boring in comparison. People with ADHD didn't stand a chance. We were sitting ducks. Why is the only thing in my shot that's staticky like Cthulhu? Just hanging up in the corner. Vibrating. Anyway, I'm sure it's fine.
Mother, I crave violence.
Part 1. Mistreatment of idols. So, you want to be a K-pop idol. K-pop idols are created, trained, styled, and marketed by mostly a handful of companies like SM Entertainment, JYP, and YG. What happens is a person, usually a teenager, we're talking like 12 or 13, will audition to be put into a group. They're judged on things like their dancing skill, singing, and overall visual appeal. Makes sense so far, nothing too nefarious. But once they're accepted, things start to get weird. First of all, the idol will sign a contract, usually for 7 years, and in that time, the company controls their entire life. Most live in a dormitory with the other group members and have little to no privacy. Now that all sucks, but it's a hard job and it's a small price to pay for being rich and famous, right? Just wait. The contract the idol signs essentially says that the company will pay for their training, styling, marketing, food, housing, etc., and that this is treated as a loan that the idol is taking out from the company, and that the performances and record sales go towards paying off that debt. Debt?
Hi, this is Sharon with Navient. I just want to check in with you about the status of your student loans.
Sorry. These contracts are literally called slave contracts, and idols report that these entertainment companies do everything they can to cut corners while inflating the idol's debt wherever they can. It's common to see photos of idols sleeping on the floor backstage or passed out in vans because their schedules are packed with back-to-back performances. Idols report training 12 hours a day or more while on extreme diets. Here are just a few examples of K-pop diets. So a group may be training all day, then travel for hours to a venue, and the driver may only stop to get them something from a convenience store. Not surprisingly, there have been multiple idols who have fainted during performances. This is just ridiculous to me. Like, you don't need to feed these people Michelin star fine dining every day. Nutritious food isn't even expensive in Korea, so it just comes off as these companies being really cheap. I have to move you. You're so... God, what a weirdo. Idols also have very little control over how much debt they're accumulating. For example, if a company wants to change your look, they can hire a team of stylists, a fashion designer, a makeup artist, new choreographers, and the cost of that all gets added to the idol's debt. If next season they want to change it again, it just gets changed, and the idol doesn't see those numbers. Did that makeup artist cost $300 or $3,000? A lot of the controversy came out after group TVXQ came forward about their working conditions. And since then, some concessions have been made. For instance, these contracts used to be for 13 years and now they're only 7. So things have improved, but in my opinion, it's still unacceptable. K-pop idols aren't even allowed to date, and this isn't exclusive to Korea, like this is actually pretty common in Asian entertainment, but it's uncomfortable for me. The penalty for dating can actually go as far as being kicked out of your group, and that means being forced to pay back your debt without a career. I know that these idols sign these contracts, but it's just so controlling. I can't respect it. Also, fans can be horrible to idols when they find out they're dating someone in secret. The industry revolves around crafting an image of a young, hot artist that the audience can hope to have a chance with. If they're dating someone, the illusion is broken. I don't like this because it encourages people to be delusional about their chances with a K-pop idol. Like, you really think you're gonna get stuck in an elevator with Jimin and then he's just gonna fall madly in love with you? You?
Yes, that's French they're speaking, and no, these children aren't French, they're American.
And no, honey. So idols are often exhausted, underfed, taking on huge amounts of debt, unable to date, and then subjected to intense criticism from fans. And tragically, there have been several idols lost to suicide. Choi Jin-ri, aka Sully, was a member of FX. She was a rare, outspoken advocate against cyberbullying in Korea, which actually led to so much backlash from fans that's honestly bizarre to me. She committed suicide in 2019. I think the turning point for me really was Kim Jong-hyun. He was a member of SHINee and a personal favorite. He committed suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning, and the note he left was just so heartbreaking. It wasn't my responsibility to go against the world. It wasn't my path to become world famous. That's why they say it's hard to go against the world and to become famous. Why did I choose this path? It's quite funny now that I think about it. It's a miracle that I endured through it all this time. We can't know what was going on in his personal life, but I believe to this day that these conditions put undue stress on him during a time that he needed help. What happened to these two are not isolated incidents. K-pop fans say that they love these idols, but how can you love someone and then give money to a company that treats them this way, or go out of your way as a fan to punish them for dating? I can't celebrate an industry that treats artists like this. If you're really a K-pop stan, you should be demanding to see what the idols are given to eat. Be willing to miss a show if it means they get to sleep. Loving someone isn't about what they can give you, it's about wanting what's best for them. But what the hell am I talking about? What is this labor rights bullshit? You want me to talk about the embarrassing side of K-pop. You want part 2, Koreaboos.
I'm an otaku, which is another word for anime freak.
So Korean culture is being more appreciated around the world, and just like the Japanese weeaboo, it gave rise to the Koreaboo. You can find all sorts of Koreaboo cringe compilations on YouTube, and yes, they're very funny, and I may have watched more than I'd like to admit.
만들 거예요.
I can't sleep because of that video.
The general consensus seems to be you can like a culture all you want, you can appreciate it, you can immerse yourself in it, but it's when you forsake your own culture and say, I wish I was Korean and not blank, that's when you cross over into being a Koreaboo. I don't actually agree with this take. I think people start making fun of K-pop stans well before they say anything like this, and it's just an excuse to be cruel to them. When I was in school, if someone found out you watched anime, it was an immediate,
oh, so you want to be Japanese? Like,
it was about as common as, I identify as an attack helicopter is now. Like, every kid thought it was the most unique and hilarious shade ever thrown. So I guess we haven't really evolved that much in one generation.
You bitch!
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.
At its worst, people call out K-pop stans for saying embarrassing things like, oh, I only date Korean men, and yeah, that's not okay. Like, fetishizing someone's race is never good, When you date someone because of a fad, you're not actually interested in that person, just the appearance of being seen with them, and that just makes them an accessory, like your purse or your backpack. Wishing you were a different race is admittedly pretty cringe, but I don't think it's much different than a lot of the weeb shit we saw in the 90s, so a lot of you 90s kids don't have a leg to stand on, and honestly, I think most people grow out of it. On the flip side, we've seen and are still seeing a sort of interesting sexual awakening in Western culture.
I really want Jay Park to grab my butt and call me baby girl. Is that too much to ask? No, it is not too much to ask at all.
Historically, men have decided what is attractive in women and in men. Women have just been told what masculinity is and what it looks like, which is super convenient for a culture based in white supremacy. What a cool coincidence. The story women are told is that Black men are dangerous thugs, Hispanic men are dirty and lazy, and that Asian men are weak and effeminate. So let's all put on our Sherlock hats and figure out who benefits from that stereotype. Eugene Yang did a roundtable for BuzzFeed about the way Asian men are portrayed in the media and how it ends up translating into the wider culture.
Tone for this conversation. The idea that Asian men in American media are emasculated and seen as somehow less than other racial counterparts is something that's been historically sort of plaguing a lot of the different projects we've all probably worked on in the past.
It's the result of effectively a historical campaign. I mean, you know, Asian immigrants first started coming to this country. Everything from political cartoons, obviously government policy, was all about kind of framing Asians as almost bestial vermin.
Based on the accounts I've heard, Asian American men often struggle in dating unless they're insanely hot because of racial stereotypes, whereas the image of the schlubby white guy with an inexplicably hot wife is so common in our media, it's basically a joke at this point. K-pop has introduced a lot of women to a spin on masculinity that they've never seen before, and I'm not saying Asian masculinity is better or not problematic, but it is different. Suddenly there are options. It's expanding the possibilities of what masculinity can look like, and a lot of women are into it. I think Koreaboos are just the latest group of people to be dragged for daring to like things. This isn't new, it's not even modern. Have you ever seen the old footage of Elvis concerts? What about the Beatles?
40 young ladies fainted, but authorities feel that some were playing possum, so that they might be lifted over the fence and thus be nearer their idols.
Oh my god, do any of the millennial elders remember that girl who threatened to kill Carson Daly on live television because of, like, the Backstreet Boys?
Right, though. You're very pissed off, Tiffany's about to punch me in the face.
Kill her. I'm gonna kill you too.
Oh.
Weird. It's almost like culture isn't degenerating just because it's not the 1950s anymore. How bizarre. Would we do a TikTok cringe compilation of all these young women and just with hundreds of comments telling them to kill themselves? No. I think the problem isn't that they love something, it's that they show it in a way that feels uncool. You know, they love with abandon, and to a population of insecure former weebs, that's just unacceptable. Yes, some people do say crazy shit. Like, one criticism they get a lot on Reddit forums like Koreaboo Cringe, which as an upstanding person of the internet I've never been to, is that the sexual posting from Koreaboos about their idols can be very dark.
It's time to stop!
It's clear to me that some of this is just people trolling the community, especially the poop stuff. However, I know several women who went through a phase between the ages of like 12 to 15 of just being into really dark sexual content. I don't know if there's a term for this phrase, and believe me, I looked. Rest in peace my Google search results. It's pretty embarrassing, and so I don't think a lot of women talk about it. My point is that I've seen this phenomenon in almost every fandom from My Little Pony to Sherlock. On the surface, it is pretty distressing. Like, is this some sort of developmental phase, or is it our environment? Scientists are baffled. I'm just kidding, scientists don't study women. A lot of K-pop fans get frustrated with Koreaboos, and I can understand why. They make you look bad, and to outsiders, it can be difficult to tell the difference. But I implore us to look at ourselves and examine where this hatred is coming from. First of all, are these people really hurting you? No. they're just being embarrassing at a close proximity. And I suspect the people that hate on Koreaboos the most, deep down are worried that there might be a little Koreaboo in them too. In the end, it really was the treatment of idols in the industry that made me leave the fandom, and I still love K-pop. I just can't support the industry unless they make some serious changes. But what do you think? Does knowing any of this change your opinion of K-pop or Koreaboos? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, team. Bye!